What is going on, investors? Back again. Time to take a look at another stock that has really been beaten down this year and whether or not we should come in here and buy this stock or wait. So we're going to talk about Boeing company, ticker symbol BA. For the last year, this stock is actually down about 58%. Year to date, we're down about 50%. For the last 6 months, it's actually been positive. If you happen to get this stock near its 52-week low about 6 months ago, around $90, you'd actually be up about 58% right now. In the last month, we're down about 5% with Boeing. We're going to jump into a little bit of the news and headlines that is kind of moving this stock just a little bit. We'll take a look at some of the other factors that I think might be kind of interesting with this stock going forward. Then finally, we're going to jump into the stock chart. So on a daily view, Boeing is basically sideways and hovering right on this moving average. That's like a 50-day moving average. But when we jump over to the monthly chart, I think some interesting stuff is going on there. So we'll get to that in a minute. But the 52-week range on Boeing, this stock was all the way up to $391. That's what makes this kind of attractive, because you see now the stock is trading at about $157. Again, our 52-week low is around $89. There is no PE ratio because this stock has trended down into the negative territory in their earnings due to all the problems that they're having with not only airlines not flying, but also their 737 MAX having all kinds of issues as well. They used to pay a dividend. They don't anymore. We've got a market cap of $90 billion. We'll keep that in mind as well as we roll through the news. Now, Goldman Sachs added Boeing to a conviction buy list, which I think is like their highest praise for a stock. But keep in mind, with these investment groups, they might have a bunch of shares, or they might have clients that have a bunch of shares that they're trying to sell. So they're trying to pump it up. Not saying that that's what's happening here, but you always got to take those kind of things with a grain of salt. But Goldman did add Boeing to a conviction buy list. Now, Boeing is set to move their 787 production out of the West Coast. They're like, I'm tired of these politicians and the unions and all this stuff on the West Coast. We're moving our production of the 787 to South Carolina, which I believe is a non-union state. So there you go. That might cut some cost here. Might upset some people up in Washington state, but might get people to get their act together up there to allow more manufacturing getting done there. So Boeing 737 MAX, which is the key plane. Again, most of you know this plane has been grounded, I think, for over a year now. Had some problems, had some accidents. There's lots of litigation. There's lots of conversation about this plane, but it's edging closer to a return. And I think the timeline is sometimes towards the end of the year, this plane is scheduled to fly again, as Europe is conducting tests right now. And we'll see what happens there. Now, what's interesting about Boeing is a lot of us know it as consumers because we fly on the planes, we know when we're flying domestically or abroad. But what is interesting is take a look at this chart. This is from Bloomberg. So the blue line are the global services. The black is commercial airplanes. The gray is defense and space. So they do a lot of defense airplanes and things like that and stuff for the United States government. And finally, the red is Boeing Capital, which is a really small part of the business. But take a look. So this global services, that's a pretty big part of the business. The commercial airplanes is a big part of the business, but so is this defense. And it actually has been really steady over the last few years. We see just in 2019, this was $2.6 billion. If you add that to global services, which was 2.7, now you're up over $5 billion. Throw in another 28 million on the Boeing Capital. And, you're paying, again, this is a $90 billion company. And I just showed you just their defense and global service business is worth over, call it $5 billion. So you want to ask me why I went over that. Well, take a look at Lockheed Martin, what they sell for, they sell for about 16, 17, depending if you're looking at GAAP or non-GAAP numbers. They sell for 17 times earnings, okay? And this is operating income right here that Bloomberg is showing you. And so if you take about $5 billion, call it $6 billion, you're actually pretty close just on the defense business at a Lockheed Martin valuation. So that basically means you're getting this commercial airlines business, which is typically like, a $5 to $7 billion business. You're almost getting that. I don't want to say you're getting it for free, but you're getting it at a steep discount to compare to what you would have paid for it in the stock in the past. So just the defense business at Boeing is probably worth in the neighborhood of $90 billion. And we're not even counting now the commercial airline business, the 737s, all the other planes that they fly. So that should get you excited as an investor, because this valuation has really come down, and now you're getting it. You're basically getting maybe a free call option on the planes returning to flight. Now, are the planes going to return to flight? Are Boeing's going to get a bunch of orders from the passenger airline companies? I don't know. I see a lot of comments on my page talking about, oh, when a vaccine comes, well, it's clear skies for Boeing. Well, maybe. The problem is their customers, these commercial airlines, have lost so much money this year. Take a look. They were steadily churning in that $4 billion, $3 to $4 billion revenues over the past few quarters. But then take a look at this. These are net profits, actually. Boom, we lost $5 billion in Q1. We lost $11 billion in Q2. I'm assuming Q3 and even Q4, we're going to be at a loss. It's not going to be good. Their customers that are going to be buying these 737s and any other kind of planes that Boeing has to sell them are going to be in big financial problems over at least the next 12, probably 24, probably even 36 months. These airlines are going to be struggling. And so that, in my opinion, is probably going to keep a lid on the stock even after we get some positive news on the vaccine. Now, let's jump into the chart. Like I noted, this is a 50-day moving average, and Boeing is basically trading right on it. It's trended down. The stock is in kind of a sideways down momentum for this stock, but you're going to be buying Boeing for the long term. I don't think if you're trying to trade Boeing on the news, I think you're playing with fire. I think the only way to buy Boeing is that eventually the airlines are going to be profitable again. People are going to fly, people are going to travel, things are going to get better, whether it's 12 months from now, 24 months from now, 36 months now. You don't really care. You're going to hold Boeing for, I would guess, 3 to 5 years at minimum. And so that's what this video is really about. So I want to flip to a monthly view. I want to look at Boeing from a much broader time perspective than a daily view, because we're not trying to trade this stock. And what I actually see here is this stock's actually, lo and behold, is actually in an uptrend for the last month or so. And this is a 200-day moving average, which is a very key level for stocks. And we see that this stock has wicked through the 200-day moving average only to bounce up and close. It bounced through the 200-day moving average and closed above it, bounced through it and closed above it. And then the last 4 months, we've actually been above it. We're actually on, I would guess, a key level of support here. We also see this MACD is looks like it totally wants to bottom out. This RSI is actually this is actually positive divergence in the RSI as well. We see it's actually, even though this is negative for the MACD, this is actually starting to turn positive. And so, should you just go all in and buy Boeing stock today? I say absolutely not. You definitely want to buy stocks when they're on their downtrend, when the news is negative, and as opposed to when everything is sunshine and roses. You'd be stuck here at $430, $400, maybe even close to $500 a share for Boeing. But here's the thing. What I like about Boeing is they have a defensible business. They have the defense business. There's not a lot of people that compete with them on the commercial airline business. But what I would do is be very gently with how you inch into the stock. Like I explained, I don't think the news is just going to all of a sudden turn around for Boeing when there's a vaccine and when people start returning to fly. Like I showed you, the customers that are going to be buying their planes are in tremendous, that they've wiped out years worth of profits just in the last few months. So they're not going to be in the financial position to come in here and buy a bunch of planes. What I would do is, if you want 10 shares of Boeing, I don't mind if you buy one today. Wait a little bit. Buy another one maybe in a few weeks or another month's time. Boeing's one of those stocks too. I actually don't mind you buying it on the way up as the news gets better. We clear this 737 to fly. Maybe wait all the way until there's a vaccine. Maybe the stock is up here at $200 by then. But guess what? You have cleared a bunch of hurdles and a bunch of negative catalysts. If this 737 MAX gets rejected for whatever reason or comes back into service, and heaven forbid, we're not praying for this, but if there is another tragedy, guess what's going to happen to this stock? It is going to slam all the way back down to the lows of $90 a share again. I almost guarantee it. So you need to be, a lot of things are outside your control here. Okay. This launch of this plane has to go really well, and you better be praying. Everybody's obviously praying for this, but if there's any kind of tragedy with that, it is going to send this stock lower, and people are going to be rethinking that. That's why you don't want to get stuck buying a bunch of shares at one level with Boeing. I would wait for the news to get a little bit better until you inch into a complete position. So if you want 10 shares of Boeing, I would buy one, wait a little bit, buy two, wait a little bit. I probably wouldn't buy maybe my fourth or fifth share, which would be about a 50% position, until we had a vaccine and there was a clear idea on when that was going to be administered to a large portion of the population. Again, the stock might be up here at $200 by then, but then I'd wait until maybe the airlines start looking a little bit better. Maybe they stop losing money and they start breaking even, or the government bails them out again. Again, the stock might be up at $250 by then, but then maybe I have 6 or 7 shares by then, and I can confidently close out the rest of my position and watch this stock continue to go upward. I think that's a strong probability if all things go well. Again, you are hoping that a lot of things go well with Boeing. Not only did that launch of their plane has to go well, we have to have a global pandemic get sidelines, and then on top of that, their customers, the United States airlines like Southwest and Delta and American, they all have to get financially healthy as well. That's a lot of moving parts, and so that's why I wouldn't run in and jump and buy Boeing, but you are getting it, in my opinion, at a really good valuation. You have those defense contracts, which should keep kind of a lane underneath this valuation and keep it propped up, at least for the time being. So that's Boeing stock. I think there's a lot of risk in this stock. I think most of it is priced in, and I think if you want to go long Boeing, I would inch into it. I gave you a 10-share example. If you want 100 shares or 1,000 shares, I think you can kind of get the idea of how you need to kind of tiptoe into a stock like this. And actually, in my opinion, I don't always say this, but I'd actually wait for the news to get a little bit better before I really jumped in and built up a solid positions. Typically, I like to buy when there's blood on the street and everybody's fearful, but there's so many moving parts that are outside of Boeing's control on this, including science and the medical community and their customers as well. So I would play this one a little bit differently than other beaten down stocks that I have looked into in the past. But Boeing's a stock that's been on my watch list for a while. I think we're getting close to where you can kind of jump in here, put your toe in the water, and see how it goes. So let me know in the comments how you're playing this one. Love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck with your investments.